Second argument, specified complexity, which you can also see in the human cell or in a mouse trap, either one. Specified complexity is complicated things or a complex design that does not derive, is not required by natural law. A complex design that is required by natural law is a river system. A river system flows downhill. That's how water works. Gravity causes water to want to go downhill, and so river systems always go that direction. But blood vessels don't. Sometimes blood vessels go up. Sometimes they go against gravity. They're not required by natural law. And they are way too complex to happen randomly. And they have an independent pattern. This does not happen accidentally. It does not happen randomly. It does not happen by natural law. Therefore, it only happens by design. And design only comes from intelligence. It's the only place it comes from. That's the second argument, specified complexity. Third, the law of the conservation of information. William Dembski is really the proponent and the pioneer of this idea, the law of conservation of information. Here's what he says. Nature cannot create new information, as in information contained in DNA. It can only work with the information it already has. Therefore, a more complex species could not have evolved from a less complex species. Now that may be too many words for you to hear and grasp all at one time, but here's what it means. If you have a mousetrap, you can take pieces off. Pieces can fall off accidentally, and you can take what's left and refashion them and maybe make something different. Maybe you could take one of these pieces of metal off and you could make something else out of just the metal. But you can't take this mousetrap and make something that requires other parts. You can't take this mousetrap and add something, say plastic, that comes from this mousetrap. And you're not going to get plastic to attach to this thing in a useful way accidentally. That's the idea with DNA. DNA is the roadmap of your entire physical existence. It is the reason that your body does everything that it does physically. Evolution requires that new information be added to DNA to go from one species to another. That you have a species with a certain amount of information as DNA, say a one-celled bacterium, and then you've got to add new information in there to get a different species, to get something other than a one-celled bacterium. Well, that never happens. Nature does not accidentally write new DNA. It's too complicated. It's too complex. It doesn't happen accidentally. The law of conservation of information says that you can go downhill, you can lose information, but you're not going to get new information without intelligence, without a design. Those are the three major arguments of design. Now I want to show you some complication of design. I've seen this, you've already seen this already in the cell and in the cillia. We go back to Psalm 19. Verse 1 says, "The heavens are telling of the glory of God, and their expanse is declaring the work of his hands. Day to day pours forth speech, and night to night reveals knowledge." Just like Romans says we can look at that which is created and understand God, Psalm says the heavens tell us about God. The heavens speak to us about what God is and what God has done. The universe is enormous. It's believed that there are 100 billion galaxies in the universe. 25 sextillion stars in the universe. That's 25 followed by 22 zeros. Now the Bible talks about sometimes mentions as numerable as the stars in the sky. And I even came across one passage that says God knows every one of them and has named them. 25 sextillion stars. And that's just the ones that we know about so far. But our sun, if you look at Psalm 19 verses 4, the end of verse 4, he says, in them he has placed a tent for the sun, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber. It rejoices as a strong man to run its course. Its rising is from one end of the heavens, and its circuit to the other end of them, and there is nothing hidden from its heat. Our sun is 93 million miles away from the Earth, roughly, and it actually changes. The Earth's orbit is actually elliptical, so we're not always exactly the same distance from the sun. I want to show you something. Pat, would you come back up here, please? Pat brought me this basketball. I think he got it out of the west wing. You see this pin right here? Now, the pin is closed right now. I'm going to push the pin open, which I don't expect many of you will be able to see. But there, now the pin is open and the pin tip is sticking up. The pin tip only, which is now sticking out of the pin, that's the Earth. Okay? This is the sun. That's roughly the relationship of the Earth to the sun in size. Very rough, but general. Pat, I want you to take the sun 90 feet away. I don't know if we can go back to the back of the building or where we'll have to go, but I want you to go 90 feet. Here's the Earth, there's the sun. Slow down, okay. Oh man, we got a long way to go. Let's stop right there, Pat. That's 45 feet. That's halfway. So double that. That's how far the sun is from the Earth. Here's the point. If the sun were 10% closer, if it were 5 feet closer in this half scenario, we'd burn up. We'd be incinerated. If it were 5 feet further away, we'd freeze to death. That's design. They want to tell us that that happened accidentally. Okay, thank you, Pat. You just talk to I should have measured this room before I did that. I've got, and our projector is not terribly bright today, but here is a diagram of the Earth's orbit. So you see here the Earth is way bigger than it should be, because otherwise it would only be a speck. But it's the size of a pin. It varies in its rotation around the sun, and it goes in elliptical orbit. It's moving, I'm about to get this wrong, so I'm going to look. It's moving at 70,000 miles per hour through space. 19 miles a second. Every 18 miles, it departs off of a straight line. Straight line for 19 miles off by 1/8 of an inch. 1/9 of an inch. 1/9 of an inch, it is off of direct straight every 19 miles. If you change that straight line from 1/9 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch, we'd be incinerated by the sun. Incinerated. Or if you change it to 1/10 of an inch, we'd fly out into space and freeze to death. That's some of the most basic fine-tuning that I can explain. I tried to explain some fine-tuning several months ago, and I still don't know how well received that was. But that's how delicate the balance of existence, of life in the universe is. Genesis 1, verse 14. Then God said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night. And let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth." And it was so. God made it that way. This is not an accident. The fact that the earth is tilted on its axis is not an accident. The fact that it rotates on its axis at exactly the right speed so that we don't burn up in the day and freeze to death in the night is not an accident. God made it that way, and it was so. That's intelligent design. We see evidence and evidence and evidence, and it requires a refusal to acknowledge logic to say this happened randomly and accidentally.